Hey, folks, it's time for the quote of the day. And today we are quoting somebody who is extremely controversial. And I just want to make sure that I remind everybody again that just because I feature somebody on the quote of the day video does not mean I necessarily agree with what they've done or said. That's not the point of the quote of the day. It's not me signing off and saying, "Look, these are wonderful people in history." That's not what it is. It's these are people in history and they said some stuff. And sometimes there's wisdom, sometimes there's understanding, sometimes there's just a perspective of philosophy that I want to share, and I think that it's important to do so. Also, if I have the opportunity to perhaps teach a few things that you didn't know, little tidbits, something that you can take to trivia night at the bar, then that's what I'm here to do. Today, the man that we are quoting, I gotta say, there's a lot that I don't agree with. There's a lot, and it's not to say that I'm some sort of prude or anything. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that this guy took it to an extreme that I don't know if I could ever get along with. Today, we are quoting the Marquis de Sade. Now, there's people out there that know that name, immediately know what I'm talking about, and then there's people out there that don't know. But if you know the term sadism, then you know where that comes from. Well, you maybe you didn't until now, but the Marquis de Sade is an author. He's a writer. He's also a bit of a philosopher, a libertine, so many things. But the what he really is known for is these characters that he wrote in these books that are extremely sexually graphic in nature and somewhat horrifying in certain books, and in certain areas of those books. Um, literally the idea of pain, like inflicting pain on someone because they get off on it. It comes from, well, it doesn't really come from him, but it was popularized by the Marquis de Sade. And you may ask yourself, what could you possibly quote from this man? And the answer to that is actually really funny because it took me a while. It took me a while. There weren't a lot of people to quote today, and I wanted to quote somebody that I felt had an impact. And the more that you know about the Marquis de Sade, the more you recognized, or that you recognize the impact that he's had, which is actually a very substantial impact in society that we live in today. People maybe don't realize it, but the Marquis de Sade was kind of the, I guess you could say, not really the grandfather or the spiritual heir, or not heir, a spiritual predecessor, but to a certain degree, I guess you can. But some great philosophers, Camus, Nietzsche, I'm blanking right now, but there's a bunch of philosophers that have said specifically that the work of the Marquis de Sade opened up their mind to allow them to think on greater terms about what suffering meant, and really kind of how good it could be. And obviously they didn't take it to the sexual degree that he did, but that's just what they saw. I guess you could say value in suffering, and they use that in their philosophy. And there's literally probably dozens. I mean, listen, there's an entire genre right now of that kind of writing where the men are kind of smarmy bandits, and they go out and they do horrible things to women, and people like it for some reason. I know that it's a fantasy. I don't personally, like that kind of stuff, but it's not about what I personally like. It's about the fact that it exists. Now, to be fair, there is a lot more kind of, just filthy romanticism that goes along with today's writings, as opposed to just absolute fucking horrific scenes of violence and debauchery. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not, I'm not really equating the two. I'm just saying that there is a line to them. And I think that it's important to understand, like, there is a lot that he talks about in those more, body raunchy things that he wrote that kind of play out to be true from time to time. Some people are really into S&M, and the S in S&M literally is based upon characters that he wrote in his books. Now, again, I'm not trying to say he was a good guy. There are lots of people out there, lots of women in history that said that he was a monster. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all I need to know to consider him such. But I think that if you divorce some of his ideas from the actions of the man, the alleged actions of the man, then I think that you can kind of try to reach an understanding. And I think that that's what a lot of philosophers throughout history have done. They've kind of looked at him and said, well, he was disgusting in the things that he did. He was a horrible, horrible person, but some of the things that he talked about are important to kind of dive into a little bit more. And I think that that's where you really do have to, as they say now, you have to separate the art from the artist. And the reality is that both a good portion of his art and he himself, according to all accounts, are disgusting at some level. But there is hints of wisdom, and there is something deeper there. There's something about that. Now, if we want to make the assumption that all he actually did was have some really vigorous orgies, then I mean, and which is, there are historians out there that say that, then give the guy some credit for creating some absolutely fucking disgusting writing. But he also wrote, like I said, a lot of really, really important ideas, and he put them on paper, and it allowed other thinkers, other philosophers to come along, pick them up, and dive into them. There are a lot of people out there that say that we don't arrive at a lot of philosophical concepts and political concepts, like the idea of anarchism, libertarianism. I had a really hard time remembering how to say that. Libertarianism, even libertarianism, like and anarchism, they both come from this idea of kind of doing your own thing, right? Like absolutely being part of something bigger, but doing your own thing. Anarchy exists in a nobody telling you what to do kind of scenario, and that's really honestly the basis of a lot of what the Marquis de Sade wrote about. I just think that it's important that when we talk about these people, even if we don't agree with them, that we kind of take the time to find something that we can understand about them, right? Like I know that it may be distasteful for some, but for me, I want to try to find a way to, I guess, appreciate, because like I said, philosophers and writers and a lot of the way that we see the world comes from these people. It may seem disgusting to think that, but it's true. Now, let's get to the quote of the day. I'm actually going to use two, and I'm going to talk about them both together. Um, the Marquis de Sade once wrote this: "In order to know virtue, we must first acquaint ourselves with vice. In order to know virtue, we must first acquaint ourselves with vice." Now, when I say other philosophers and things like that, this is something that could be tied directly to Carl Jung. Like, this is something that he talked about. This is understanding your shadow, right? Understanding the dark parts of yourself, understanding this deep, not even evil necessarily, just that shadow part of you, right? They call it doing shadow work. This is the same basic concept. Understanding these dark parts of yourself so that you can then counteract them, like contradict them, and move against them, and make yourself a better person, a better version of yourself. Absolutely see these dark parts, understand the vice within you, understand the things, your hungers, your desires, the things that perhaps you're not very proud to say out loud, so that you can then act in a way that not necessarily denies them. You don't want to do that, but feeds them in a healthy way, right? Like, I think that's important. Now, as far as the other quote, um, I love this quote actually. It's as funny as it is. He said, "It is far less essential to understand nature than to enjoy and respect its laws." Now, this is something that is very important to understand about the Marquis de Sade. The Marquis de Sade did not believe in God. He believed in nature. And that's one of the reasons why he believed that, you go out in nature and animals do the do, they be getting it on, if you know what I mean. And that's one of the reasons why he focused on that particular aspect of it, because he believed that that's where a lot of power in nature lied. And so that's how his entire worldview became about that aspect of the natural world. And I think when you see it from that point of view and you understand it, like you go out and you see two dogs bumping uglies, like it's kind of like, okay, this is an important thing that we all do. Let's get into it a little bit more. And that's what he did. And so I'm not going to say happy birthday to the Marquis de Sade, but I am going to say thank you for the good things that you did. To the rest of you, take care of yourself, take care of others. I'll talk to you soon.